What happens when the one person destined to save your world is the same person your world tried to destroy? For Sarah Whitlock, life as an Omega in the Blackpine Pack meant invisible servitude. She scrubbed floors while others dined. She mended clothes while others hunted. She bowed her head while others ruled. For 23 years, she endured in silence, clinging to one fragile hope, that when Alpha Kale Thornridge finally claimed her as his fated mate, everything would change. That the mate bond pulling at her ribs every time he passed would finally mean something. That she would finally matter. But when he stood before the entire pack at the Harvest Moon ceremony and spoke the words that would sever their bond forever, rejecting her in favor of a political alliance with Beta Lyanna Ashford, everything shattered. Yeah, and what happens next, no one was prepared for. Not the pack that cast her out. Not the Alpha who thought he was choosing power. And certainly not the 10 ancient warriors who had been waiting 1,000 years for her to awaken. The ceremony ground was packed with bodies. Over 300 wolves from Blackpine and the neighboring territories had gathered beneath the massive oak that stood at the pack's heart. Its branches hung with silver lanterns that swayed in the autumn wind. The scent of roasted meat and spiced cider should have made the night feel festive, but Sarah could barely breathe through the tightness in her chest. She stood at the very back of the crowd, as Omegas always did. Her threadbare dress, the only formal clothing she owned, hung loose on her small frame. Around her, pack members jostled and laughed, eyeing their excitement palpable. The Alpha would announce his chosen mate tonight. Everyone knew who it would be. Lyanna Ashford stood near the front, radiant in crimson silk, her dark hair cascading down her back like a waterfall of ink. The scent of cinnamon and iron radiated from her in waves, beautiful and sharp as a blade. But Sarah knew the truth no one else did. The mate bond thrummed between her and Kale like a golden thread, invisible to everyone but them. She had felt it snap into place on her 18th birthday, the moment she'd first shifted. For 5 years she had waited, endured, believed. Kale Thornridge stepped onto the raised platform, and the crowd fell silent. He was magnificent, tall and broad-shouldered, his dark hair pulled back to reveal the sharp planes of his face. His eyes were the color of amber, burning with authority. The scent of forest and embers and steel rolled off him, mixing with the crisp bite of ozone that always accompanied his wolf. He was power incarnate, and every wolf present felt the weight of his dominance pressing against their submission. "My pack," Kale's voice carried across the clearing without effort. "Tonight, under the witness of the moon goddess, I claim my mate and future Luna." Sarah's heart hammered. The bond pulled tight, singing with recognition. This is it. Finally. Lyanna Ashford of the River's Edge Pack stepped forward. Time stopped. The world tilted sideways as Lyanna glided onto the platform, her smile victorious. Sarah's knees nearly buckled. Around her, the crowd erupted in cheers, but the sound was distant, muffled, as if she were underwater. No. No. This isn't... Kale's eyes found hers across the sea of faces. For one breathless moment, she saw something flicker there. Regret? Recognition? But then his jaw hardened, and he looked away. However, his voice cut through the celebration, and silence crashed down again. There is one matter that must be addressed first. Sarah's blood turned to ice. "Sarah Whitlock, come forward." The crowd parted around her like she carried disease. Whispers erupted. "What's the Omega doing here? Why would the Alpha call her up?" Sarah's legs moved without her permission, carrying her through the gauntlet of staring eyes and wrinkled noses. She could smell their disdain, their confusion, the sharp tang of judgment that had followed her all her life. When she reached the platform, Kyle looked down at her with eyes gone cold. "You feel it, or don't you?" His voice was low, meant only for her. "The bond the moon goddess forged between us." Sarah couldn't speak, could only nod. The goddess made a mistake. Each word was a hammer blow. "An Omega cannot be Luna. You are weak, powerless. Your bloodline is common. The pack needs strength, not compassion. Strategy, not servitude." Kale, her voice broke on his name. I, Cale Thornridge, Alpha of the Black Pine Pack, reject you, Sarah Whitlock, as my mate and future Luna. I sever this bond before the moon goddess and all witnesses gathered here. The bond didn't just break. It erupted. Pain unlike anything Sarah had ever known tore through her chest, as if her ribs were being pried apart from the inside. She collapsed to her knees, a scream ripping from her throat. Around her, Alma the pack watched in fascination and horror as the mate bond, that sacred thing, was destroyed by choice. Sarah felt something else break too, something deep and ancient that had been coiled tight inside her all her life. It splintered like glass, sending shockwaves through her body. Through the haze of agony, she heard Lyanna's voice, saccharine with false sympathy. Poor thing, take her away. This is unseemly. Hands grabbed Sarah's arms. The pack guards, rough and impatient. They hauled her to her feet and dragged her backward through the crowd. Pack members stepped back, unwilling to even brush against her now. She was tainted, rejected. Nothing. They didn't stop at the pack house. They dragged her past the boundaries, past the wards that marked Black Pine territory, and threw her into the dirt beyond the tree line. Nah, don't come back, one guard growled. You're banished. Alpha's orders. The cold hit her first. October in the Northern Territories was unforgiving, and the thin dress provided no protection. Sarah pushed herself up on trembling arms, tasting blood where she'd bitten her tongue. The forest stretched before her, dark and endless. She turned back toward the Packlands, toward the only home she'd ever known. Maybe her parents. But even as the thought formed, she saw them. Thomas and Mira Whitlock stood at the boundary line, their faces carved from stone. Mother? Father, please. You brought this on yourself, her father said, his voice flat. We warned you not to hope above your station. You embarrassed this family tonight. We have other children to think of, her mother added, not quite meeting Sarah's eyes. So, your siblings need to be able to find mates, have futures. We can't be associated with this. The scent of their fear, acrid and bitter, was worse than their words. You're my parents. Sarah's voice was small, broken. We have no daughter who was rejected by an alpha, her father said. Then they turned and walked away, leaving her alone in the darkness. Sarah stood there until she couldn't feel her feet anymore, until the sounds of celebration faded to nothing, until the reality of her situation settled like stones in her stomach. She was alone, banished, rejected, and the night was getting colder. Sarah walked because stopping meant freezing. The forest grew denser with each step, the canopy blocking out even the faint moonlight. Branches clawed at her dress and skin, leaving thin scratches that stung in the frigid air. Her wolf stirred weakly within her, but she was too small, too weak to offer any real protection. Omegas always had smaller wolves, less strength, less everything. The temperature dropped further. Sarah's breath misted before her face, and her fingers had gone numb. How far had she walked? Miles? The pain in her chest where the bond had been torn away throbbed with each heartbeat, a constant reminder of what she'd lost. Thunder rumbled overhead. The first drops of freezing rain began to fall. No, not rain, not now. But the sky didn't care. Within minutes, the drizzle became a downpour. The rain was so cold it might as well have been ice, soaking through her dress instantly, plastering her hair to her face. Sarah's teeth chattered violently. She wrapped her arms around herself, but it did nothing. The cold was inside her now, or seeping into her bones. She needed shelter. Anything. Through the sheets of rain, she spotted a dark shape, an abandoned barn, half collapsed but still offering partial coverage. Sarah stumbled toward it, her legs barely cooperating. She fell twice before reaching it, scraping her palms on rocks hidden beneath fallen leaves. The barn was barely standing. 3 walls remained intact, and about half of the roof. It smelled of rot and animal droppings, but it was marginally drier than outside. Sarah collapsed in the corner where the 2 walls met, pulling her knees to her chest. Her entire body shook uncontrollably. This is it, she thought with surprising clarity. This is how I die, alone, unwanted, forgotten. The storm raged outside. The temperature continued to plummet. Sarah felt her body slowing down, her shivering becoming less intense. Not because she was warming up, but because she was shutting down. Hypothermia. She'd learned about it once. How your body gave up trying to warm itself. How you just felt tired. So tired. Her eyes drifted closed. "I'm sorry," she whispered to no one. To the moon goddess, maybe. To herself. "I'm sorry I wasn't enough." The darkness pulled her under. Sarah woke to warmth. That was the first shock. She was warm. The second shock was that she was breathing. The third was the pressure all around her, heavy and alive and breathing. Her eyes flew open. Gray dawn light filtered through the barn's gaps, revealing what surrounded her. Wolves. Massive wolves, easily twice the size of normal pack wolves, their bodies pressed against her on all sides. Their combined heat had formed a living cocoon around her frozen body. Sarah's breath caught. She counted them slowly. 1, 2, 3 massive gray forms. 4, 5, 6 with darker markings. 7, 8, 9, all different colors and patterns. And 10. 10 impossibly large wolves, each one regarding her with eyes that glowed faintly in the dim light. She should have been terrified. These were not pack wolves. These were something else entirely. But the scent that surrounded her wasn't threatening. It was ancient cedar and stone and starlight, old and powerful and protective. The largest wolf shifted, rising to his feet. He was enormous, his head level with her chest even while she sat. His fur was deep silver gray with darker markings along his spine, and his eyes were the color of storm clouds lit by lightning. The scent of aged oak and winter snow and pine rolled off him, mixed with the sharp bite of an approaching storm. He stared at her for a long moment. Then, impossibly, he spoke, not with his mouth, but directly into her mind. "We've been waiting for you." Sarah jerked backward, but there was nowhere to go. The other wolves remained still, watching with that same unsettling intelligence. "What? How?" Her voice was hoarse, barely audible. The silver wolf's form began to shift. Sarah watched in horrified fascination as bones flowed, not snapped or cracked, but flowed like water, into new positions. Fur receded. Within seconds, a man stood before her. He was tall, powerfully built, with silver gray hair that fell past his shoulders and a face that might have been carved from granite. In scars crisscrossed his chest and arms, old wounds that spoke of countless battles. But it was his eyes that held her. Those storm gray eyes held centuries of knowledge, of patience, of purpose. "My name is Aaron Stormborn," he said, his voice like distant thunder. "Commander of the Shadow Guard. And you, Sarah Whitlock, are the one we have sworn to protect." "I don't understand," Sarah's voice shook. "I'm nobody. I'm just—" "You are the matriarch reborn." Aaron knelt before her, and one by one, the other wolves shifted to human form. 5 men and 4 women, each bearing similar scars, each radiating the same ancient power. They knelt as well. "We have waited 1,000 years for your awakening." Sarah stared at them. 10 warriors, each one looking at her like she was something precious, something important. "There's been a mistake," she whispered. "I'm an Omega. I'm powerless. I was just rejected and banished because I'm nothing." Aaron's expression hardened. "That rejection may have been the greatest gift you ever received. Tell me, Sarah, when the bond broke, did you feel something else break with it?" She thought back to that moment on the platform. The shattering pain, yes, but underneath it, yes, something deep, like glass breaking inside me. Not glass, chains. Aaron stood and extended his hand to her. "Your power has been bound since infancy. The rejection shattered that binding. Your wolf is waking, Sarah. And when she fully emerges," he smiled then, fierce and proud, "the world will tremble." Sarah took his hand, and the moment their skin touched, a wave of power washed over her. Her wolf stirred within, not the weak or a small thing she'd always known, but something else, something massive and ancient and furious. "Who did this to me?" she asked, though part of her already knew. "Come," Aaron said gently. We have much to tell you, and you need food and proper shelter before your transformation begins. The Shadow Guard led her deeper into the forest, to a place that should have been impossible, a settlement hidden by magic and ancient wards. Stone buildings stood among massive trees, a fortress disguised as ruins. Other wolves moved through the space, but they were different from pack wolves. Larger, more primal. They bowed their heads as Sarah passed. Inside the main hall, a fire roared in a hearth large enough to stand in. Someone brought her thick furs and warm food, venison and bread and herbs that made her head clear and her body warm. Sarah wrapped herself in the furs and ate ravenously, surprised by her hunger. When she'd eaten her fill, Aaron sat across from her, the other Shadow Guard members arranged nearby. "Tell me," Sarah said. "Everything." "There is an old prophecy," Aaron began. "Most wolves believe it to be merely a story told to pups. But my pack, the ancient packs, we kept the true knowledge alive." He gestured, and one of the female warriors, Kira, who had introduced herself earlier, brought forth a leather-bound tome. The pages were yellow with age, covered in script that seemed to shimmer in the firelight. Ein Aeron read, "When the moon bleeds red and the old gods wake, the matriarch will rise from chains they break. Born of common blood but blessed with ancient might, she will come when wolfkind needs her light. Cast out by those who should have treasured most, protected by the 10 who guard her post. With power to heal and strength to command, she will unite the packs across the land." "That's about me?" Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. "Your parents knew." A male warrior named Dorian spoke, his voice rough. "When you were born during the blood moon 23 years ago, the shamans felt the surge of power. They tried to hide it, but word spread. Your parents were terrified." "Terrified of what?" Sarah demanded. "Of you," Aaron said simply. "Of what you represented. Change. Power they couldn't control. So they made a choice." Kira opened another book, showing Sarah a page covered in dark symbols. "A binding ritual. Illegal, forbidden, but effective. They bound your wolf when you were only 3 months old, before your power could manifest. They made you believe you were weak, made everyone believe it." Rage, hot and fierce, flooded through Sarah. "They crippled me. My own parents, they let me suffer. Let me be treated like trash. Let me believe I was worthless." "Yes," Aaron confirmed. "And they would have gotten away with it except for one thing they didn't anticipate. The rejection," Sarah breathed. "The mate bond is ancient magic, sealed by the moon goddess herself. When Cale Thornridge severed it, he unknowingly created a surge of energy powerful enough to shatter your binding." Aaron's eyes gleamed. "He made a mistake. He didn't just reject his mate. He unleashed the most powerful wolf born in a millennium." As if responding to his words, something stirred deep within Sarah's chest. Her wolf, her real wolf, raised her head for the first time. "Sister," a voice echoed in Sarah's mind. Not her voice. Deeper. Ancient. "I have waited so long." Sarah gasped. "She's talking to me." "Of course she is," Aaron smiled. "What did she say?" "She called me sister." Tears pricked Sarah's eyes. "My whole life I've had a wolf, but she was so small, so quiet. This is different. She's enormous," Kira supplied. "Powerful, everything you were meant to be." The wolf stirred again, and this time, Sarah felt her body respond. Heat bloomed in her chest, spreading through her limbs. "It's happening," Aaron said, standing. "Everyone outside. Give her space." "What's happening?" Sarah's voice rose in panic as her bones began to ache. "Your first true transformation." Aaron was already moving toward the door, the others following. "Don't fight it, Sarah. Let her out. We'll be waiting." Then they were gone, and Sarah was alone with the fire and the growing pressure inside her body. "Trust me," her wolf said. "Trust us." The pain hit like a wave, but it wasn't the sharp agony of breaking. This was different. A flowing, surging sensation as her bones reshaped. Sarah fell to her hands and knees, gasping. Her fingers began to elongate, nails darkening and curving into claws. But it didn't hurt the way shifting usually did. Instead, it felt like something uncoiling, like a butterfly emerging from a chrysalis. Fur erupted along her arms, not brown like her Omega wolf had been, but white, pure white that seemed to glow in the firelight. The transformation accelerated. Her spine lengthened. Her muscles expanded, power flooding into them like water filling an empty vessel. Her senses exploded outward. She could smell everything. The deer roasted hours ago. The wolves waiting outside. The rain from the night before still clinging to the stones. The scent of lavender and morning dew and wildflowers that was her own scent, magnified 1,000-fold. The change reached her face. Her jaw extended, teeth sharpening. Her eyes, she couldn't see them, but she felt them change, felt power pooling behind them. And then it was done. Sarah stood on 4 legs in the center of the hall, and the ceiling seemed much closer than it should have been. She turned her head, you catching sight of herself reflected in the polished metal of a shield on the wall. The wolf staring back was magnificent, easily the size of a full-grown horse, with fur like fresh snow touched by starlight. Her eyes glowed with an inner light, lavender blue, the color of dusk. Power radiated from her in visible waves, making the air shimmer. "We are whole," her wolf said, and Sarah realized there was no separation anymore. They were one being, one consciousness, perfectly balanced. She threw back her head and howled. The sound erupted from her chest like thunder, resonating through the stone walls and out into the forest beyond. It was a howl of power, of freedom, of rage at all the years stolen from her. It shook the building's foundations and sent ripples through the magical wards protecting the settlement. Outside, she heard answering howls, the Shadow Guard responding to their matriarch's call. The doors burst open and Aaron entered, still in human form. He approached without fear, reaching up to place a hand on her massive head. "Welcome, matriarch," he said softly. "You are glorious." Sarah shifted back to human form, another flowing transformation that felt as natural as breathing. Someone had left clothes near the fire, and she dressed quickly, her hands shaking. "I felt it," she whispered. "The power. It's like I've been living my whole life holding my breath and I can finally breathe." That is exactly what it was. Kira had entered as well, her eyes bright with unshed tears. 23 years of suffocation, no more. The other Shadow Guard members filed in, each one kneeling before her. "We are yours," Aaron said, "as we have always been. The Shadow Guard was created 1,000 years ago for one purpose, to protect and serve the matriarch. Our bloodlines have passed down the oath from parent to child, waiting for your return." 10 warriors, Sarah murmured, looking at each face. The prophecy said 10. 10 bloodlines, Dorian confirmed, each with specific gifts. Aaron leads us, but we each bring something unique. Tracking, healing, battle strategy. We will teach you all we know. "And the Black Pine Pack?" Sarah's voice hardened. "Kale? My parents?" "That," Aaron said carefully, "is your choice. Revenge? Justice? Mercy? You are the matriarch. The decision is yours alone." Sarah closed her eyes, feeling the weight of that responsibility. Part of her wanted to march back to Blackpine and show them exactly what they'd thrown away. And show them her power, her strength. Make them regret every cruel word, every dismissal, every moment they'd made her feel worthless. But another part, the part that was growing stronger, knew that revenge would make her no better than them. "First," she said, opening her eyes, "I want to learn. I want to understand what I am, what I can do. Then we'll see." Aaron's smile was fierce. "Wise. Come then, matriarch. Your training begins now." The days turned to weeks. Sarah threw herself into training with a hunger that surprised even the Shadow Guard. Each morning began before dawn with physical conditioning, running through the forest in wolf form, learning to push her new body to its limits. She was faster than any wolf had a right to be, covering miles in minutes. Stronger, too. She could leap over obstacles that would have seemed impossible before. But the physical training was just the beginning. "Your wolf is not just larger," explained Mira, one of the Shadow Guard's healers. "You have abilities beyond normal wolves. Watch." Mira shifted to wolf form, a beautiful amber-colored creature, and deliberately gashed her foreleg on a sharp rock. Blood welled, and the Sarah instinctively reached out. Power flowed from her fingertips, warm and golden. The wound on Mira's leg knitted closed in seconds, leaving not even a scar. Healing, Mira said, shifting back. Matriarchs can heal injuries that would kill normal wolves. What else can I do? Sarah asked, fascinated. Aaron stepped forward. Command. Not just your pack, but any wolf. It's similar to an alpha's dominance, but stronger, more absolute. On here, try it on me. I don't want to hurt you. You won't. I'm stronger than most. Push me. Sarah hesitated, then reached for that well of power inside her. She focused on Aaron and thought, kneel. His legs buckled immediately. He dropped to one knee, his eyes wide with shock. By the goddess, he breathed. I couldn't resist, didn't even want to. Sarah released him, alarmed. I'm sorry. Don't be. Aaron stood, rubbing his knee with a rueful smile. That was a fraction of your power, and you brought me, a warrior with centuries of training, to my knees without effort. Imagine what you could do to those who wronged you. But Sarah didn't want to imagine that. Not yet. She learned she could sense emotions through scent more acutely than any other wolf. Fear smelled like rust and acid. Joy like honey and sunshine. Rage like burning copper. She could read pack dynamics with a glance, understanding hierarchies and relationships that others would need weeks to uncover. The Shadow Guard became her family. Dorian taught her battle strategy, showing her how to outthink opponents rather than just outfight them. Kira showed her the ancient texts, explaining the history of her kind. A quiet warrior named Theron taught her to move silently, to become invisible in plain sight. Lyra and Soren, a bonded pair, taught her pack dynamics and diplomacy. Each member of the Shadow Guard had their own story, their own scars, their own reasons for dedicating their lives to waiting for her. They became more than guards. They became friends, found family. You smile more now, Aaron observed one evening as they sat by the fire after training, when Sarah realized he was right. I never had a reason to smile before, not really. And now? Now I have 10 reasons. She gestured to the Shadow Guard scattered around the hall. And a purpose, and power, and… She paused. Hope. Aaron's expression softened. You deserve all of that and more. Over the weeks, Sarah noticed something else growing, something warm and electric whenever Aaron was near. The scent of aged oak and winter snow made her heart race. The way he moved, all contained power and quiet strength, made her breath catch. When their eyes met across the training grounds, she felt a pull that was different from the mate bond she'd had with Kale. That had been destiny imposed from outside. This felt like choice, like recognition. One night, as they walked the perimeter of the settlement, Aaron spoke quietly. You know that I am not your fated mate. I know, Sarah's heart hammered. The moon goddess did not draw us together with an unbreakable bond. He stopped, turning to face her. But I have waited 1,000 years. My bloodline has waited, for you. And now that you're here, Sarah, I feel like I've been waiting my whole life not just to serve you, but to know you. Aaron, chosen mates are different from fated ones, he continued. They're built on choice, on understanding, on growing together. I would never presume… Sarah kissed him. It was tentative at first, unpracticed. But Aaron responded with gentle certainty, his hands cradling her face like she was something precious. When they broke apart, his eyes glowed with emotion. I choose you, Sarah whispered. Not because destiny demands it, but because you saw me when I was nothing and treated me like I was everything. You were never nothing, Aaron said fiercely. Never. The bond that formed between them wasn't the invasive, overwhelming force of a fated mate bond. It was quieter, deeper, a choice renewed every day, and somehow that made it stronger. But their peace couldn't last forever. It was Theron who brought the news, bursting into the hall where Sarah was practicing defensive maneuvers with Lyra and Soren. His face was grim, his scent sharp with urgency. Scouts, he said without preamble, from Blackpine. They found our settlement. The hall went silent. Sarah's wolf stirred, rising to alertness. How many? Aaron demanded, appearing from the shadows where he'd been watching the practice session. 3. We captured 2. The third escaped. Theron's jaw clenched. He'll report back. They'll know you're here, alive and… different, Sarah finished. She took a deep breath. How long do we have? Hours at most. Blackpine is only 20 miles from here. If they mobilize quickly… They will, Dorian interjected, joining them. An Omega who survived banishment and winter? Who's apparently allied with unknown powerful wolves. Kale will see that as a threat. Sarah closed her eyes, centering herself. When she opened them, her voice was steady. Then we prepare. How many wolves can Blackpine mobilize? The pack has roughly 200 wolves, Kira said, appearing with several ancient texts. But only about 40 are trained warriors. Of those, maybe 20 are combat-ready at any given time. 20 against 11, Lyra murmured. Not terrible odds, given who we are. We don't know they'll all come, Aaron cautioned. But Sarah knew better. They'll come, all of them. Kyle won't risk looking weak by sending a small force. He'll bring everyone he can. He'll want to make a show of strength. She was right. They came at dawn, just as the sun crested the horizon. Sarah stood at the settlement's boundary, the Shadow Guard arrayed behind her in human form. She wore simple leather armor Kira had given her, her white hair braided back from her face. She looked nothing like the trembling Omega who had been cast out weeks ago. The Blackpine wolves approached in a massive formation. Sarah counted at least 30 wolves, all in their shifted forms to appear more intimidating. At their head was Kale, in his large black wolf form, unflanked by Lyanna, whose russet wolf was elegant and deadly, and several senior pack members. They stopped 50 yards away, and Kyle shifted to human form. He wore full ceremonial armor, clearly intending this to be official pack business. Sarah Whitlock, his voice carried across the space. You have been banished from Blackpine lands. This is a violation of pack law. These wolves, he gestured to the Shadow Guard, are rogues harboring a criminal. I am no longer subject to Blackpine law, Sarah called back. You rejected me, banished me, cast me out to die. I owe you nothing. You carry information about our pack, our territory, our weaknesses. Kale's eyes were hard. I cannot allow that threat to exist. Surrender yourself, and I promise you a quick death. Behind him, Lyanna shifted to human form as well, on her crimson dress somehow immaculate despite the journey. Poor Sarah. Did these rogues fill your head with delusions? Make you think you're something special? Her smile was venomous. You're still just an Omega. Weak. Worthless. Something inside Sarah snapped, not with rage, but with clarity. Lyanna, she said calmly. You wanted to be Luna so badly you encouraged Kale to break a sacred bond. You craved power you had no right to. Shall we see how that works out for you? Lyanna snarled. I don't have to listen to this from a reject. She shifted mid-sentence, her russet wolf launching forward with teeth bared. She was fast. Beta-born wolves always were. But Sarah was faster. Sarah shifted between one heartbeat and the next, her massive white wolf appearing in an explosion of power. Lyanna's attack, which would have torn the throat from a normal opponent, didn't even reach its target. Sarah simply batted the smaller wolf aside with one massive paw, sending Lyanna tumbling through the dirt like a leaf in the wind. The Blackpine wolves froze in shock. Sarah was enormous, easily 3 times the size of their largest warrior. Her white fur seemed to glow in the morning sun, and her lavender eyes burned with power. Lyanna scrambled to her feet, preparing another attack. Sarah didn't give her the chance. She released a pulse of command, that same power she'd practiced with Aaron, and Lyanna's legs buckled. The beta wolf collapsed onto her stomach, whimpering, unable to resist the overwhelming force of the matriarch's will. Submit, Sarah commanded, not with words but with pure intent. Lyanna's wolf immediately rolled onto her back, exposing her throat in the ultimate sign of surrender. Around them, every Blackpine wolf felt the weight of Sarah's dominance pressing down on them like a physical force. Kale shifted back to human form, his face pale. What are you? Behind Sarah, the Shadow Guard shifted as well, and as they did, their true forms were revealed. Not normal wolves, not even large pack wolves, but dire wolves, ancient guardians that stood nearly as tall as Sarah, each one rippling with centuries of power. 10 mythic creatures, each one capable of taking down multiple pack wolves without effort. The scent of terror washed over the Black Pine contingent. "I am the Matriarch Reborn," Sarah said, her voice resonating with authority. "Prophesied 1,000 years ago, bound as an infant by those who feared my power. You wanted to know what I am. Ikael?" She took a step forward, and he stepped back. "I am the one who will unite all packs. I am judge and protector. I am the will of the moon goddess made flesh." Kael's confidence crumbled. He fell to his knees. "Mercy, please. We didn't know." "You did know." Sarah's voice was cold. "You felt the mate bond. You knew the moon goddess had chosen us. You rejected that gift for political gain. You chose power over sacred duty." From the back of the Black Pine group, 2 more wolves shifted, Thomas and Mira Whitlock, Sarah's parents. They looked older than she remembered, their faces drawn. "Sarah," her mother started. "Do not speak to me." Sarah's command was absolute. "You bound my power when I was an infant. You crippled your own daughter out of fear. You condemned me to a life of suffering and servitude. And you let me be rejected and cast out to die." Her voice broke slightly. "You chose your own comfort over my life." "We were afraid," her father said hoarsely. "The shamans told us you would bring change, upheaval. We wanted to protect the pack. You wanted to protect yourselves," Aaron interjected, his voice like rolling thunder. "Don't pretend it was noble." Sarah raised a paw and silence fell. "I could kill you all," she said quietly. "I have the power. I have the right. You tried to kill me through exposure and abandonment. Blood justice would be mine to claim." Hope died in Kael's eyes. "But I am not you." Sarah shifted back to human form, standing tall and proud before them. "I am Matriarch. I was born to protect wolves, not slaughter them. Even those who harmed me." She walked forward until she stood directly before Kael. Up close, she could see the regret etched into his features, smell the shame and fear rolling off him. "This is my judgment," she declared, her voice carrying to every wolf present. "Kael Thornridge, you are stripped of your title as Alpha of Blackpine. You will serve the pack as an Omega for 1 year. Let you learn what that truly means. After that year, you may earn your way back up through merit alone. If you prove yourself worthy." Kael's eyes widened in shock, but he bowed his head. "As you decree, Matriarch." Sarah turned to Lyanna, still pinned by the force of her command. "Lyanna Ashford, you manipulated an alpha into breaking a sacred bond for your own ambition. You mocked one you deemed beneath you." She released her hold, and Lyanna gasped. "You are banished from Blackpine lands for 5 years. Use that time to learn humility, and return only if you have truly changed." Lyanna fled without a word, shame and fury trailing in her wake. Finally, Sarah faced her parents. For a long moment, she simply looked at them. These people who had raised her, fed her, housed her, and then betrayed her in the most fundamental way possible. "Thomas and Mira Whitlock," she said softly. "You committed a crime punishable by death. Binding a wolf's power is forbidden under the oldest laws. But you are my blood, and I will not spill it." She took a breath. "You will publicly confess what you did. You will tell every pack within traveling distance about the prophecy, about the binding, about your fear, and you will spend the rest of your lives in service, not to me, but to the weak, the overlooked, the ones deemed worthless by wolves like you once were." Her mother wept, and her father simply nodded, the weight of shame bowing his shoulders. "And for the rest of you," Sarah addressed the gathered Blackpine wolves, "this is the beginning of a new order. The old ways, the hierarchies based solely on birth, the treatment of Omegas as less than, the power games and cruelty, they end now. I am claiming this territory and all territories within 100 miles. Any pack that wishes to join my alliance will be treated fairly, regardless of their rank at birth. Those who oppose me..." Her eyes glowed lavender in the morning light. "You saw what I did to your beta in seconds. Do not test me. One by one, the Blackpine wolves knelt. The gesture rippled through the assembled pack until every wolf was bowed before her. I am the matriarch, Sarah declared, her voice ringing with power and purpose. This is my territory. You and any wolf, alpha, beta, or omega, who seeks justice and fair treatment will find sanctuary with me. Thunder rumbled overhead despite the clear sky, and for just a moment the moon was visible in broad daylight, a crescent hanging pale against the blue. The moon goddess was watching, and she was pleased. The Blackpine wolves were escorted back to their territory with a simple message. They had 1 week to decide if they would join the new alliance or leave. Sarah gave them that choice freely, understanding that forced loyalty meant nothing. In the end, nearly 70% chose to stay. They were tired of the old ways, tired of hierarchies that valued birth over merit. Word spread quickly. In the north, there was a matriarch who judged fairly, who valued all wolves equally, who had power beyond anything seen in living memory. The other packs began to send emissaries. Sarah stood on the balcony of what had become her hall. The ancient settlement had been fully restored now, its stone walls standing proud and strong. The Shadow Guard had become her council, helping her navigate the complicated politics of uniting disparate packs under one banner. Aaron joined her, wrapping an arm around her waist. The mate bond between them had strengthened daily. Not the overwhelming compulsion of a fated bond, but something built on mutual respect, understanding, and choice. It was exactly what she needed. 3 more packs sent word today, he said quietly. They want to join the alliance. Let them come. Sarah leaned into his warmth. Sao will show them that strength and compassion aren't mutually exclusive. You're building something remarkable, Aaron murmured against her hair. A new world for wolfkind. We're building it, Sarah corrected. All of us. The Shadow Guard, the reformed Blackpine wolves, every pack that chooses this path. This isn't about me being powerful. It's about creating a system where power is used to protect, not oppress. In the courtyard below, Sarah could see her parents working in the kitchens. True to their sentence, they served the pack now in the humblest ways possible. She still couldn't forgive them, not fully. But she could see them trying to make amends, one act of service at a time. Kale worked alongside them, no longer adorned in alpha finery but in simple work clothes. He knew the experience was transforming him. Sarah had watched the arrogance slowly drain away, replaced by genuine understanding of what he'd taken for granted his whole life. Do you ever regret it? Aaron asked. Showing them mercy instead of justice? Sarah considered the question. Sometimes I'm angry. Sometimes I want them to hurt the way they hurt me. But then I remember, I'm not trying to replicate the old system. I'm creating something new. And that starts with choosing a different path. Wise beyond your years, matriarch? She smiled. I'm only 23, you know. Sometimes I feel like I'm playing dress-up in someone else's destiny. You were born for this. Aaron turned her to face him, his storm gray eyes serious. Not because of prophecy or power, but because of who you are. Your compassion, your strength, your refusal to let suffering break you. That's what makes you the matriarch. The power is just a tool. Sarah kissed him softly, marveling at how different this felt from what she'd shared with Kale. That had been need and desperation. This was choice and certainty. Matriarch. Theron appeared at the balcony door, his expression urgent. Forgive the interruption, but you need to see this. They followed him to the settlement's boundary, where Kira stood with several scouts. The healer's face was troubled as she gestured to the sky. The moon hung visible despite the afternoon sun, and it was wrong. A dark red stain spread across its surface like blood seeping through white cloth. A blood moon, Kira whispered. In daylight, that should be impossible. Sarah felt her wolf stir uneasily, and the scent of the air had changed, ozone and copper and something ancient that made her skin prickle. What does it mean? Dorian asked, appearing with the rest of the Shadow Guard. Kira pulled out one of the ancient texts, flipping through pages with shaking hands. Here. When the matriarch rises, the old gods wake. When she claims her throne, the ancient seal breaks. Beware the blood moon that walks in day. The first evil remembers the way. First evil? Sarah's voice was steady despite the fear coiling in her stomach. What is that? We don't know, Aaron admitted. The texts are fragmented. But the prophecy that foretold your coming was only the first part of a larger story. The blood moon pulsed, and somewhere far away something old and terrible opened its eyes for the first time in millennia. But Sarah wasn't the frightened Omega who had been cast out into the cold anymore. She was surrounded by chosen family, protected by ancient warriors, and armed with power she was only beginning to understand. Whatever was coming, she would face it. Not alone. Never alone again. Gather the packs, she commanded. Send word to all our allies. Whatever this is, we'll face it together. And so Sarah Whitlock's journey began. Not as a victim, but as a leader. Not as the weak, broken Omega they'd tried to destroy, but as the matriarch reborn. She learned that true strength wasn't the power to dominate, but the courage to choose compassion even when you had every right to choose cruelty. She learned that found family could be stronger than blood, that chosen love could be deeper than fated bonds, and that sometimes the ones who tried to destroy you were simply handing you the keys to your own power. From rejection came revelation. From near death came rebirth. From abandonment came alliance. The world had tried to make her small, weak, invisible. Instead, they freed her to become exactly what she was meant to be, not in spite of her suffering, but because of what she chose to do with it. What happens when the one person destined to save your world is the same person your world tried to destroy? You learn that sometimes the greatest threats come from outside, but the greatest transformations come from within. And you learn to be very, very careful about which Omegas you cast out into the cold, because they might just come back as queens, and their first act might not be revenge, but their second? That's still being written. Thank you for listening to Sarah's story. If you enjoyed this journey from rejected Omega to matriarch reborn, please like this video, leave a comment telling us what transformations surprised you most, and share this with fellow Wolf romance fans. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next chapter, where we'll discover what ancient evil has awakened with the blood moon, and whether Sarah's new alliance can withstand what's coming. We'll see you in the next chapter.